1. My boyfriend and I, both in our early 20s, live in a condo in a mostly quiet neighborhood, filled with primarily elderly and young families. Normal day-to-day noise does not bother us at all, and we're a very quiet couple that keeps to ourselves for the most part. We've been very comfortable here, and I've only ever had issues with one neighbor who shares a wall with us, and also happens to be the end cap to our condo unit, meaning we're the only people subjected to the noise from their side. Things with this neighbor began getting nasty when we had first bought the condo. My neighbor consistently let his son and girlfriend, now wife, park in my driveway, practically up against my garage door. This lasted for months, and eventually we reached a point where my parents were helping move more furniture in, and we could not reach the front door or garage due to one of their vehicles being in the driveway. My father, 70, could not reach them to ask them to move and stupidly yelled into their home to tell them to move it. The girlfriend quietly came out to move the car after about 15 minutes, and only a couple of minutes later the owner, 52, came into my garage threatening to beat up my father and screaming every sort of profanity. After this, we had no issues for a few months until the son began parking in my driveway again. We had a police officer knock on his door to ask him to move, which again prompted the neighbor to come onto my property to scream at my Ring camera, now threatening to beat me up and saying he hoped I would show up so he could shove his foot up my butt, only a tad more colorfully than that. About a year passed with no further issues, and my boyfriend moved in with me. Around this time, we began to notice that this man has 4 vehicles, 1 for 2 young adults, his sons, and 2 for himself and his wife. I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but these condos are typically lived in by 2 or 3 people, and oftentimes the third person is a baby. We have now realized that 6 or 7 people live in this condo next to us, which is absolutely not an issue, as I understand the housing market is a nightmare right now. It became an issue once he began encroaching on our property and designated parking. Each condo has a driveway which can usually fit 2 cars if you squish, and a spot on the road in front of each condo. My boyfriend normally parks on the road to allow me space to back out of the driveway if needed. Within the past couple of months, we noticed that the man's son or wife would take this spot if it was unattended for a few hours. While annoying, this wasn't a huge issue as we figured something else out. However, over spring break, there was a car that we didn't recognize parked in front of our condo for almost a week. Another issue I haven't addressed is that oftentimes our trash will be missed or just not taken because too big of a car is in front of it and they cannot reach it, and we have nowhere else to put it if someone other than us is parked there. It was odd to have a car we didn't recognize out front, so we had a cop come out to figure out who it belonged to, at which point the neighbor told him that it was his son's friend's car and that he'd be back the next day to move it. We had the cop come over because of the neighbor's past actions, and I didn't feel comfortable speaking to this man. Shortly after the police left, I noticed motion on my camera, and yet again my neighbor was cussing me out through it. About a week passed, and we noticed the wife parking in our spot frequently again. At this point, we decided to be petty, and my boyfriend would park his car on the tail end, sticking out, fully on our property and poking into our spot on the road. Once she left, my boyfriend went out to move his car into the road, which, yet again, brought the neighbor out into the driveway. He aggressively asked my boyfriend what his problem was, which quickly escalated into an argument about parking between the two, which I could hear from the kitchen on the opposite end of the condo. I walked out to see the man in my boyfriend's face, swinging around a 20-pound weight and threatening to pinch his head off. I've never heard a grown man say this, and a bunch of other nasty words. He ended up throwing the weight on the concrete, and my boyfriend backed into his spot while I tried to calm the man down. Oh, no, don't ever try to reason with crazy. He told me that I was always nice, and I explained to him that the cops were called last week because it was a car we didn't recognize, not to antagonize him. He puffed off as soon as his son told him to get ready for dinner, and my boyfriend and I headed back inside for the night. Now I think we're caught up to current day, where I was threatened yet again only 2 days ago. Around 2 a.m., 3 nights ago, someone went down the street and entered and unlocked cars and stole money and weapons. I knew something was up as I saw about 4 cops further down the street talking to my other neighbors, and checked the neighborhood GroupMe to see that someone had ring footage of the person stealing. I'd say about 10 cars were entered, including my boyfriend's. Apparently, my neighbor is not in the group chat and didn't realize that someone had stolen from his unlocked car until about 6 hours after everyone else. Yet again, he began screaming at my camera. For some reason, called me the N-word, despite him and myself and my boyfriend being as pale as can be. Said he was ready to bust my door down, etc. At this point, I peeked my head out the door and told him that it wasn't us, to which he responded by telling me, "I have a weapon to protect myself," and that it was probably your boyfriend who broke into my car. I spoke to him as quietly as I could with him still able to hear me, and he continued on screaming at me and threatening me while I was practically hiding behind my own front door. I closed and locked the door as he drove off and barely slept for the night, as I was worried he would do something else. During all of this, my boyfriend and I have just started trading off parking on the road to avoid any further arguments with this man. He has started coming out at night when my boyfriend gets home and stares at him as he walks into the condo, as well as punches his hat or hand when we're inside and he sees my boyfriend parked on the road. We haven't had any crazy issues since then, but I overheard his son saying he would bash in my car window last night. I also saw him speaking with my neighbors across the street, whom he never speaks to, while he pointed at my condo and car several times and was clearly speaking about the break-ins. Yet again, this man very obviously was not in the group chat, as there is video evidence that it was not either of us, and we were both asleep by the time the cars were robbed. Another small instance I'd like to include was a night I can't remember exactly when we could hear him screaming at his son, saying words like, "You wanna effing fight?" and other profanities. Mind you, 3 small children under the age of 10 also live in his condo. He also makes a habit of pulling into his driveway late at night, rolling his windows down and blasting music. He also does this in his garage, which he cannot park in because it's filled with his work tools. The whole situation has been causing me a whole lot of stress, and I quite literally do not know what to do about it. I have means of protecting myself and my boyfriend, but we quite literally cannot be comfortable going outside or onto our porch out of fear of interacting with this man. My boyfriend works 9 to 5, and I'm currently pursuing a degree, and we have to deal with this man 24/7 as he has his own business and works from home. Any advice or thoughts would be extremely helpful, as we've even considered moving, although we'd prefer not to. I definitely have felt like maybe we did something wrong. Definitely not that. There's just crazy people everywhere. But I'm also convinced this man is just very quick to anger. Yep, that one there. The police have told me that I could sue for harassment or get a protection order, as I have tons of video evidence. Again, any ideas or thoughts are helpful. If anything doesn't make sense, please let me know. Hellfreezer's note, most likely your neighbor's just full of bluster and is too much of a coward to actually do anything other than shout. But it probably wouldn't hurt to look into the protection order as a precautionary measure. Beyond that, unless you are willing to move, there's not much you can do. Just keep doing what you're doing, documenting all the things he's doing wrong, the harassment, the threats, and make use of it if you need to. But it's important that you don't do anything petty to him, anything that could be seen as retaliatory. Then it would be easy for him to make you look like the bad guy. And I know it sucks, but that is often how these situations work. 2. My brother and I, 24 male and 22 female respectively, live on the bottom floor of a 3-story unit building, 6 units total. Have done for over 2 years now. About 6 months ago, a lady moved in across the hall from us. I say she's about 50 or 60, seems to be by herself and retired. I'm assuming she is an owner, not a renter. She seems to have good money based on the Gucci sunglasses, etc. Talked to her once and she seemed nice enough, maybe a bit of a strange look in her eyes. Ever since she moved in, she has been meticulously tending to the garden that sits in front of the building and everything around it. Hosing everything in sight, the ground, walls, garden, picking up tiny bits of rubbish and sticks that are on the road with a dustpan. Usually she's out there with the hose twice a day, sometimes for hours on end. Sometimes very late at night or very early in the morning. I think it's a bit excessive, but I just thought she's not bothering anyone. It's probably just a routine she likes to have, so what? It's nice that someone cares about the garden. But a few months ago, I noticed she has started hosing our car garage door as well. The spray from the hose would also come over the wall and sometimes wet the ground and any washing we had put out. It'll drip down from the door and create a puddle. I thought this was a bit much, especially since this was our property and she lived on the other side of the building. I was also worried it could cause rust or water damage, or even damage the power box, not to mention she was doing it multiple times a week, and it just was unnecessary, loud and annoying. So a few weeks ago, I slipped a note in her mailbox asking her to please not hose our garage door, and that I was concerned about damage. Nonetheless, she continues to do it, and I know she received the note. Yesterday, I was home alone, and I heard the loud spraying sound of when she was hosing the garage. It had come over the barrier as well. I decided to ask her face to face. I went outside and simply said, "Hey, could you please not do that?" She said, "Oh, it's just for the spiders." But I haven't seen any spiders there, and it's not her business anyway. Especially when I had already asked her to stop. I replied, "Yeah, I'm just worried about rust or it getting damaged. Thanks." And I went back inside assuming that was the end of it. Nope. About a minute later, while I was in the other room, I heard 4 loud bangs on our front door. Unnecessarily loud bangs. I heard my brother open it and some talking. He told me that she had a crazy, worked-up look on her face and had gone, "Can you tell your friend that we don't want her bowl on the mailbox? If she doesn't want me to hose, I don't want that bowl." Then stormed off. We were both really taken aback by this, as it seemed like an overreaction to a reasonable request. But I went and took the bowl down because, sure, not worth the hassle if it distresses her so much. For context, there is a mailbox with 6 compartments for each unit. It sits next to our garage. She hoses it as well. I found wet mail in there before because of it. Hellfreezer's note, that sounds like mail tampering. Maybe not, but that's what it sounds like. Anyway, I had to put a bowl of water out for birds to drink from. It gets really hot here, and it really helps the birds to have a source of water like that. A few times I had noticed it had been moved onto the ground. I figured that it was this lady, and she didn't like it because... I have no clue. Maybe because it wasn't pretty, or because she didn't approve it. If it was because it's not my mailbox, usually that would be fair enough, except for the fact that she's put dozens of pot plants and decorative wreaths in the community hallway that everyone uses. The day after I wrote the note, the bowl got smashed. This recent encounter pretty much confirms that she was the one that did it, and on purpose too. I just put a new bowl up because we have an old set of them and they're not expensive, so I don't really mind if they get damaged. Anyway, a few minutes after she came out to the front door, she continues to hose down our garage door, clearly out of spite. Then, as she is walking around the building, doing God knows what, she is slamming doors and yelling to herself, not talking, yelling, calling me a bitch and that I should go back to your books and do some work around here. Not sure where she got the books thing from, since I don't read often. Maybe because I'm a student? Perhaps she's offended by that too, wouldn't put it past her. She went around slamming doors for a while after. Anyway, I haven't seen or interacted with her since then. I've been pretty shaken up about it, because of how suddenly angry she got. And I get terribly anxious when I have to deal with confrontation, especially from neighbors. It would be different if I didn't have to see her every day, but I do, and she's probably not going anywhere. I'm just worried that she's going to blow up in my face if she sees me, and that she's going to damage our property intentionally. I feel like I can't go outside. I'm just stunned at the level of delusion it takes to think you're entitled to mess around with someone else's property, and get so angry when someone politely asks you to stop. It's not like she's getting anything out of it either, it's just hosing a door that is on the other side of the building to her. It's not like I demanded she stop hosing full stop. She can go for her life elsewhere. Not to mention, she seems mad that I don't do any work around here. What work? Every single other tenant minds their own business inside their own homes, which is all they are responsible for. You don't sign a contract to do chores every day around the building when you move in. I take care of my place that I am responsible for, and I respect my other surroundings. I'm just incredibly frustrated and anxious now. I don't know what to do. It's not like anyone can do anything. I'm hoping she just leaves us alone. I'm considering getting a camera just in case she does intentionally damage something. What are your thoughts? Am I overreacting? Hellfreezer's note. I would definitely report what she's doing to whoever oversees the building, management, maintenance, whoever that might be. There'll be some governing body you can talk to. Fact of the matter is, she shouldn't even be performing any kind of maintenance on the building. It's not her responsibility. And as you say, she is possibly doing damage. Bring up the thing that she's soaking people's mail with this hose. Probably worth looking into whether or not it's viable to report her for that as well. Depending on who you talk to, I think it might be. As I always say, don't do anything that makes you look like the bad guy here. Don't engage in any petty acts of revenge, but make sure you stick within the rules, because I think the rules will be on your side in this matter. Go to like a Dollar Tree or someplace like that and pick up like a cheap plastic bowl and put that down for the birds if you're wanting to continue to be kind to them like that. Less chance that it'll get broken. Beyond that, just document, report. If you're able to put a Ring door camera on your door just to record when she's coming to your door to harass you, I would do that too. Obviously make sure you're in accordance with all the rules, as it's very important that she looks like the crazy lady that she is. Good luck with it. 3. So my family has been living in the same house since I was born 20 years ago. But about 2 years ago, one of our next-door neighbors moved away. The new family seemed nice at first. They were a husband, wife, and their kids. I'm not sure how many kids exactly, because the older kids are not around much, so I never see them. But the real problem is their 2 young boys. Anyways, when they first moved in, they had a barbecue in their backyard and invited us over. My parents, brother, and I opted not to go because we didn't want to. But my younger sister went. They were nice to her and gave her plenty of food, but it wasn't long before we started having problems. The first problem we had with them was when the family got a dog. It appeared to be some kind of German Shepherd puppy or a similar-looking dog. The problem is that we could occasionally hear them yelling at the dog in the backyard. My sister even claimed she saw them hit the dog on one occasion. And my brother could hear the dog whining from next door when they locked it in a shed outside. My brother's bedroom window is right by the shared fence where their shed is, so it makes sense he heard it. Anyway, fast forward half a year or so, and the dog is fully grown, and is being kept outside 24/7 in their backyard. This might not be a problem if they provided the dog with a heated doghouse, but we live in Alberta, where our winters can be minus 40 Celsius or colder. That was the final straw. When winter came and there was a cold snap and the poor dog was still outside, we called the non-emergency line to report them. Before anyone says we were overreacting, we have a husky who loves being outside, but even he comes inside when it reaches extreme temps. Their dog had a short coat and did not appear to be a cold, hearty dog. The dog has now disappeared. We've never heard or seen it again, so we assume it was taken away or surrendered by the family. The next problem we've had with them is their 2 youngest boys. Their mom doesn't seem to have a handle on them, and they've often been seen wandering into the street or other people's yards, my family included. They run around and scream at each other, climbing on people's cars and messing up their yards. They've also almost been hit by a car before. I saw it happen. Anyway, the biggest issues we have with this are, 1, the kids climbing onto our truck. We have a tonneau cover that isn't meant to be stood on, and it appears they might have put a chip or dent in it already. 2, we have a decorative fountain by our front lawn with these small white rocks. The kids will come over and throw the rocks onto our lawn. I've seen them doing this on multiple occasions, and they run away when I open the door to tell them to go home. The rock throwing is a problem for 2 reasons. They could break windows on our cars or the house, and the rocks on the lawn could get stuck in our lawnmower. If these were your neighbors, how would you go about handling this situation? I want to confront them, but I am a conflict-avoidant person and don't want to be rude. But I think that these neighbors also don't want to talk to us, because they know we reported them for the thing with the dog. They never say hi anymore when we see them, and they seem to avoid coming into direct contact with us. Hellfreezer's note, always a good idea to get a camera in these situations, so if the kids are coming onto your property and essentially vandalizing the place, document it. Then if you do have to approach the family, then you can say, hey, look, this happened, here's evidence of it. Because, let's be honest, if you're approaching them without evidence, they're just going to be like, well, that wasn't my kid wouldn't do that. And if they keep doing it, might be time to contact the police. Or the same organization you contacted about the dogs, because those kids sound like they're acting like animals. 4. Me and my family live in a small town. We get along well with the neighbors in our cul-de-sac, but we have a nightmare neighbor who lives directly behind our terraced house. For context, my dad posts dashcam footage on YouTube as a hobby. His videos have helped us get a bit of extra money and helped spread awareness about road safety. However, my dad made a mistake by posting a video that was too close to our home. The video was of my nightmare neighbors standing near the road talking to each other with their kids near them. However, their kid ran into the road and my dad had to slam on the brakes. Thankfully, no one was hurt. My dad posted the video online without thinking much of it, after blurring the kid's face for safety, just wanting to spread the message to parents that no matter how in control of your kids you think you are, they can still run into the road unexpectedly and to be wary. What happened over the next few months was hell for all of us in the family. The nightmare neighbors whose kid it was had found the footage and started claiming my dad was, well, you get the idea, because he posted the video. Again, to clarify, my dad had blurred the kid's face and took careful measures to hide these people's identities. However, the neighbors still threatened him online. It didn't stay online, though. The neighbors went as far as yelling abuse at him at my little brother's primary school and showing up to our house when my dad was at work to threaten me and my mum. We had contacted the police about these situations, but there wasn't much they could do about it. I wish I could say that it stopped there, but it was only the start. The Big Bang, excuse the pun, happened a couple of weeks later. It was summer, and summer hot, so my parents had their bedroom window open at night. Their window looks out to our garden at the back of the house. At 3 a.m., my mum and dad wake up to a loud bang and called 999, the emergency services, as our barbecue had exploded and was on fire, as well as our conservatory roof being damaged. 2 police cars and a fire engine show up. Now, I don't remember much of that night, since I was half asleep and scared, but I remember my dad's face after finding out what had happened. We had cameras at the front and back of the house after being threatened by the neighbors, and we had footage of a guy throwing 2 petrol bombs over our fence. The first one hadn't gone off, but very nearly got into my parents' bedroom window, and the second one did shatter and damaged our conservatory and things in the garden, barbecue bike decking. Police couldn't find a trace to anyone, so unfortunately we had no evidence, but me and my parents know who it was that did it. It was the boyfriend of the neighbor just behind our house. She had been in on the drama about the video my dad posted, and she also was threatening us because she thought we were spying on her with our cameras on the house. We knew that it was because she was a drug dealer and was paranoid about getting caught. Luckily, we haven't had any problems since. My family and I still have to see the neighbors from time to time, but we try our best to avoid them. We're over the worst of our paranoia after such an event, but it's definitely left a scar on us. Hellfreezer's note. I'd wager what's happened here is the boyfriend has been acting independently, and this family has realized that their paranoia has gotten things riled up to such a degree that they almost killed people, and they don't want that coming back to bite them in the bum. But be vigilant, don't remove the cameras, and report anything else that happens to the police. 5. So, hi. I am a 26-year-old man and am looking to probably escape a neighbor from hell situation. Desperately, if I'm honest. It stings because it's my first apartment experience, and I of course went into it optimistically and hoping for good, and only if it had gone that way, this wouldn't exist. To the story. Moved with best friend and partner to a first apartment together. He, 25 and male, and I essentially escaped a multitude of situations together in our early 20s before this, and worked jobs together up until late last year. Still together, and we moved here about 4 years ago. So the first year here was the best, as I basically faded into the background and could operate freely, come and go without strange looks, and me and my partner never had arguments to this point. If so, they certainly weren't in the apartment. Shortly into the second year, relationship woes start to ensue, with him claiming I'm not affectionate enough. Long story short, there was a night where I ended up in jail with him bailing me out 4 hours later, and basically things returning to normal. No charges, no further meetings. Basically, it has dropped down to a few hours in the drunk tank. Everything changed from this night forward. All neighbors became pretty hostile towards me, kinda looking at me like some sort of weirdo, and I heard comments where I'd be walking around like, "Why would you stay with him after that? Anything for a white boy," commentary of the nature, along with new aggressive stamps and slams outside our unit door. When some tenants would be doing laundry, they'd very audibly, in groups, talk things loudly in our unit's direction, and slam certain doors so hard that our unit would shake. Upstairs suddenly announced their presence and became a nuisance, and it basically became a concentrated effort for me to feel unwelcome. No one would return a hello, nor eye contact, and basically I had to just accept and adapt to that. I thought someone would at least ask what went on or something, but everyone just doesn't acknowledge me. That's ongoing 4 years. I just don't talk to any of them, and I refuse to look at them, and the antics from them have ramped up and continued. Have not moved because my partner and I had too many arguments about this too, me pleading for mental health, saying that we need to leave, but him ultimately deciding he'd rather keep his cash. Now, we moved from the original unit 2 years ago to another unit, and that one got infested because of next door, so we got moved to a third unit shortly after. This third unit we are in now is somewhat isolated and in the third building of the complex. Essentially, the unit above us was empty for a long time, and maintenance workers were coming to work on it almost daily. Well, they started yelling things from up there, and slamming, I mean banging, every possible surface they could through the mornings into the evenings. They would jump on our cheaply built balcony and shake our entire floor doing so. Partner said basically it's not a big deal against my protests and continued about normalcy, albeit sleep-deprived and argumentative. I kept saying it's too strange and not a coincidence for this to happen in another unit after the first one we moved out of. That being our original unit, which we forfeited once this super angry chick moved in and started throwing parties every night. That wasn't it, though. She isn't walking past the unit screaming homophobic slurs and slamming her doors so hard the walls would shake. After a week of being ignored, she started throwing stuff at the wall whenever I cooked food, so I alerted prop management. Anyways, that's the first unit, fast forward again to now. The workers banged, slammed, and insulted us for 8 months. 8 months for 6 days a week they did this crap. Chainsaws, floor repair, wall repair, balcony, you name it, they claimed it. I actually found this preferable to the couple that lived above us briefly before. Those two, man and woman, early 40s, somehow had the same grudge as the problem chick from the first unit, and basically continued tormenting me. When I was off work, bangs and slams, or footsteps when I'd finally mustered energy to get up and do stuff, cook or use the bathroom. I have videos, but, yeah. Prop management saw them and was like, okay, try to remain calm, but this is harassment. She formally told them about it, which, surprise, surprise, made him and the female friend only act worse. By an act of God, the guy had a serious accident while I was at work, and after a couple of lousy weeks of him trying to maintain such behavior, he moved out and I never saw them again. Someone finally moved in a month ago, and it has been hell. This person apparently has the exact same grudge against me as our last upstairs neighbors. Stamps all night, angry yelling, accusing me of calling someone the N-word even though I'm also black. I've told my partner there is yet another coincidence. Someone is cleverly saying very bad things about me, and it spread around like a stench, can't shake it. And I really just would like some help. Can someone tell me, what might you do in this? Or, I don't know. Some of our arguments were him throwing things and stomping because I'm basically not stereotypically camp enough, which he thinks I should be, and he tried to get me more into. There was one time I had a mental breakdown after being called a certain word the neighbour upstairs, a white lady, heard in the first unit after the jail thing, and just stomped above me and laughed. And then when she made fun of me after a bunch of ignoring her, words were kinda exchanged, but my point was, why was she listening to me in my own unit? After that, things have been pretty I don't know, people do not mess with me at all. I don't know. Someone feel free to message me or something. Can have partner either join in when he wakes up or update if I seem a bit wound up. Hellfreezer's note. Buddy, you need to move regardless of what your partner says. If he doesn't want to go with you, that's his choice, but you need to get out of there. It's been going on for years, it's not going to get any better. You need to move to a place that's a lot more friendly for you. I'm not going to go into the details, but you do explain what happened in the confrontation, and it sounds like you acted quite reasonably for the most part. And are being punished because people are making assumptions about what really happened. It's not fair, but it sounds like everybody living in close proximity is somewhat poisoned against you. So you need to move away, start afresh, and that is the only way it's going to get better. Also, just throwing it out there, you and your partner should definitely consider couples counseling. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Naughty Neighbours episode 40. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do hit the like button and subscribe. If you'd be so good, I would appreciate it. And if you would like to support the channel, you can do that by supporting me on my Patreon page. That is linked for you in the description. $1 or more a month is super duper helpful and I appreciate it. There is also a link to the merchandise store on Teespring. Okay, no more bits and bobs today, so let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, what is your favorite type of cookie? I ask this because I have never baked cookies before, but I'm really getting the urge to. I've got everything I need to bake scones, so I'm considering doing that later. But I'm resisting the urge to go out and get brown sugar so I can bake cookies, because many of the recipes I've looked at say cookies. So what's your favorite kind? My favorite is like the soft cookie with white chocolate chunks and raspberry in it. They're so nice. I've not had them for a while, but they're very, very nice. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one comes from Revenge's Ice Cream 280, and it was, do you like your burger buns toasted or do you like them soft? And today's answer comes from Eve M. Depends, usually toasted, but if I'm going to eat it immediately the second I put it together, I can go for untoasted. Thank you very much for your answer, Eve M. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves and your buns.